Okay, needless to say, a lot has changed since the last time I uploaded a video. Now, I'm not going to get into the social, political aspects of stuff that's been going on lately, although I have been paying very close attention to what's going on and the progression of all these things, which is one reason why I haven't uploaded a video. I've been distracted completely by that, but there's other things too. My ability to make videos has been interrupted somewhat, so I can't really make videos in peace right now. Okay, everyone's kind of cooped together and that sort of thing. Anyway, I will continue to make videos on this channel like I was originally intending to. Lots of videos. Okay, that hasn't changed. I got a new computer, so I can now edit videos, but I don't like editing them because it takes a lot of time for very little benefit. Now, one benefit I do see of editing videos is to speed things up when you're working with tools that require long periods of time to produce a result. Okay, so I may be doing it in that way. I might be speeding up some videos that I plan on doing. Okay, so what have I been doing in these 2 or 3 months that I haven't been uploading? Mainly studying everything I can about Atlatl darts so I can finish up my Jack Crafty series on the Atlatl darts. I've pretty much exhausted all the free options. Okay, internet studies, out of print books, and that sort of thing, without much to add. Okay, which is very frustrating. Now, so what I've done is I switched over to studying arrows, which there's a lot more material for, and making arrows and getting a feel for what's going on with the technology here in the Southwest. Okay, luckily we do have a lot of arrows in the Southwest that are preserved, sometimes extraordinarily well preserved. So it's very useful, and I think it's going to be productive to study arrows because obviously darts, Atlatl darts, are just large versions, well, basically large versions of arrows, right? Now the bow is a different launching device entirely than an Atlatl. I understand that. There's completely different dynamics from launching from a bow than from an Atlatl. Okay, and that is reflected in arrow design. Okay, I understand that part, and I'm mainly looking at general trends, not specifics. Okay, one of the general trends that I see both in Atlatl darts and arrows is that they were made in 2 basic sizes, small and large. Even with the same person making them, the archer would make both large and small kit for some reason. Now, I have my ideas on why they would do that. Namely, I think that the smaller kit was for combat and the larger kits were for large game. You can use combat weapons on small game, and but it's hard to use it on large game, so you have to make a large kit for that. And I think that's the same argument for both Atlatl darts and arrows. Okay, there is an argument or there's not just an argument, but there's evidence that Plains Indians used a very small kit to hunt buffalo. But I think that was an expedient modern adaptation to the older style of shooting large animals with large arrows. Okay, so there's that. I'll be going into that more in other videos, but that's what I've been studying. I think it's productive to study arrows to gain insight into Atlatl darts. Okay, so I finished that pretty much. I just said, okay, that's enough, and now I'm going to be making darts. Okay, I got a basic dart that I'll be using as a template for all my future darts on that particular series. All right, I've got the fletching pretty much down from petroglyphs. They have kind of like a rounded shape to the fletching, and I've also have some arrows that I've made that match Southwest style arrows that have that rounded fletching. Now this is taken from an arrow in the Jim Ham and Steve Atlatl book, Encyclopedia of Bows, Arrows, and Quivers. This is an old ancestral Pueblo type arrow, right? Now, the fletchings don't exist on that particular arrow, but I've seen Hopi arrows that have the rounded fletch, and there are other ethnographic accounts of Indians from the Southwest and from Southern California that use the rounded fletch like this. I'm sure there's a name that I'm forgetting for this style of fletching, but I'm going to translate this into the Atlatl dart for now, for the Southwest anyway, okay? And I'm including West Texas as part of the Southwest, and maybe even Central Texas. I think a lot of the equipment and techniques can be categorized according to environment. Okay, once you get into East Texas, it becomes more of a woodland environment, so I think the weapons change slightly. But when you get past Central Texas into West Texas, it becomes more of a desert-like, canyon-like environment that is the same from West Texas all the way to the coast of California and up into the Great Basin and down into Mexico. Okay, it's a huge area of very similar terrain where there's dry, mostly dry areas with canyons, rivers flowing through these dry areas. And unless you get into the mountains, which becomes more dense as far as vegetation goes. But down in the lowlands and especially in the Chihuahuan desert and other deserts in the area, you have Pueblo style and canyon dwellings, okay? And that, like I said, they stretch of huge distance across the U.S. That's a type that I'll be going into as far as these Atlatl darts, okay? We have a lot of evidence, relatively speaking, for darts in the Great Basin in the Southwest, okay? So anyway, I got the fletching down that I'm going to use. I may put some fluffs on here like I did the other one, but probably not. Okay. The tips themselves are going to have all, 4 shafts about this size. Okay. Because I did some measurements on existing artifacts and I got an average, and I'll be going over that again in another video. This is about average. The size of tip is about average. And one thing that I have noticed over and over again, even though I don't really approve of the idea, is an abrupt change between the foreshaft and the main shaft. It appears that a lot of these artifacts have an abrupt change between the two. Not tapered, not smooth, and not shouldered. The foreshaft is not shouldered. They're just stuck in like this with an abrupt change. All right, which is a very curious and sometimes frustrating type of situation. Why do they do that? Well, one thing I was thinking about is, according to Roman doctrine back in the day, there was a rule that you only need 2 inches of penetration to kill a human with a projectile or a sword. Okay? 2 inches is not much at all to kill a human, right? I think that's a minimum, right? So this is plenty for warfare. Okay? And I've seen foreshafts that are very short too. So after you stick that short foreshaft into the socket, you lose quite a bit, and you would end up maybe with 2 inches sticking out, which is perfect, right? For warfare. So I'm thinking that these, with the abrupt change between the foreshaft and the main shaft, were warfare weapons, which seems to be the majority of what we find, which is an interesting thing. And I think these were, in general, made smaller than the kit used for larger animals. Because if you think about some of these larger animals, especially the megafauna that are now extinct, you've got a layer of fat, then you have the skin, and then you have the fur before you even get into the muscle tissue and bone, get past the rib cage, let's say, and into the vital organs. You're going to have, it's a quite a bit of distance. Now it might be this distance here, but I don't think that would be a safe bet. You probably need to penetrate quite a bit more, like twice as far as this, into a large animal, especially megafauna. All right, and even, you know, large bears, large brown bears, grizzly bears, large elk and moose, you would need more than this to ensure a good kill. You know what I mean? So I'll be going into what I think are weapons of war and weapons of hunting. Okay, now just to wrap up that other series on the Jack Crafty channel, I'm going to be assuming that these are all weapons of war, because I cannot find any instances, solid evidence of large or long foreshafts, except in one instance in the Great Basin. They're all short foreshafts like this, with abrupt changes between the foreshaft and the shaft. Okay, so I think most of what we have are warfare weapons. That's not saying that these can't be used to hunt deer and that sort of thing. But to go through the trouble of making the stone points and gathering the material for stone, there would have to be some benefit you couldn't get from just a regular bone arrowhead or a sharpened wooden point. You know what I mean? There has to be some other benefit, either status or ceremony or for warfare, to ensure you're going to kill your enemy. It's a lot more, it's a lot, how should I say this? A human is a lot more dangerous to you than an animal. You want to make sure that you are successful in combat, much more so than with hunting. All right, even though hunting is vital for food and survival, a human is much more dangerous. So just the mentality of making weapons throughout history has been to focus on the best materials and the most refined techniques and the greatest skill levels and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that sort of thing. All right. So I'll be going in that direction. All right, to wrap up. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I lost all my notes on that channel. I had updated or reviewed 18 of the videos. I think there's more than 20 of them in that series, and wrote all my notes, and I've lost that in the transition with my work areas. So I'll be redoing that. Another thing that's happened is I've received a gift of a large number of artifacts from a site in Central Texas. Now this includes lots of different artifacts from the wide spectrum of skills. There are nutting stones, there's hammer stones, there's amatate, manos, cores, bifaces, projectile points, flake tools, flat tools, I don't know why. Many different types of and shapes of stones that seem to have pecking and wear from use, and smooth areas, all that stuff. I'll be showing that collection in another video, probably on my Allergic Hobbit channel, and I'll be going over those one by one, if time permits, right? It could end up being a series of 3, 4, 5, 6 videos, but I'm going to go over that. It's a very exciting thing. I've also got a chance, the same friend of mine that gave me that collection of artifacts also let me see a bunch of other artifacts. I was able to look at dozens of artifacts with impact damage, and I've come to the hypothesis that all of them were thrown at something during their use at one time or another. All right, the types, I mean, not just the artifact, not the artifacts themselves, but the types. Every type was thrown at something, because they all have impact damage. So either they're stabbing, throwing, or shooting, all of them. Okay. Now, Of course, that could be because of expediency, which I think is the explanation, but it could also be because they were all projectile points. But I think that's a weaker argument. I think that they all have impact because of expediency, but some things that I didn't think would have impact damage like they do are things like Montel points. They have not only tip damage but base damage where it snaps in the haft. Okay, I figured that a Montel point would not be stressed in the haft very much, but I've seen, semicircular impact type or related damage on the base itself, where you could see where the teeth had contacted the inside of the shaft and broke off in a semicircular pattern inside the haft on several different points, not just Montels but other points that have like the void or the bifurcated type bases. So they were fired at something, okay, either in warfare or hunting or both, or they could have been just using a fighting style that required stabbing of intense speed. Okay, I don't know what it is, but I'll get into that later when I'm showing you the different artifacts. Okay, I don't have a lot of those impact damage artifacts. They're still with my friend, but I do have some. Okay, let's see what else. I'll do another video on let's see, on my diet and stuff like that. I know it's not related to flint knapping and that kind of stuff, but I'll do that too. I had a recent relapse into what they call carb creep, getting more carbs in your diet that are sneaky, like eating lots of sausage that contains sugar and breadcrumbs, that kind of thing. But anyway, and bacon sometimes contains a lot of sugar. I had a little relapse, and I had a time there where I was overeating and I couldn't figure out why, and it was because of the carb cravings. Okay, anyway, another video. Let's see. I mentioned the new set of artifacts. I got a bunch of new stone, actual stone, flint and chert, and I've even had some Hickston flint recently. Thanks, Scott, for that, if you're watching. So I've got a lot of new stone I want to be using. I've heat treating some of it. Some of it is raw. I'll be doing that on the Allergic Hobbit channel. Okay. I think that's it for this one. I'm going to be doing some other videos here shortly to wrap up what I'm doing today. Hopefully I can upload more than just this video. Okay.